listening to the Ocean Rowing Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Painter, physical therapist and owner of Strong and Empowered Rowing. I help people continue their love of rowing without aches and pains. Along the way, I decided I wanted to row across the Atlantic Ocean. I'm finding it super hard to get in touch with previous ocean rowers and find the answers on how to make this possible. So this podcast is to share my story and what I learn as I get ready for and ultimately cross the Atlantic Ocean. Hear from experts in different areas and from others who have completed ocean rows. So anyone who wants to do this has easy access, and we can share our stories with the world.
And take a moment to appreciate it, because I think being out there on your own is just so special.
Hey guys, so you just heard from Kelda Wood, and guess what? She's our speaker for this episode. I'm really excited to share this with you. Kelda and I actually had to reschedule. She was going to be one of the first episodes, but we ended up with a little thing that happened, and essentially we rescheduled. She fit me into her busy schedule while she was out walking her dogs, and I'm so honored that she was willing to come on the podcast. Kelda is so beyond honest that I love it. She said she would be awful for this podcast, and she says it at the beginning, and I totally disagree. This is an amazing episode. She even knew stuff before I was going to ask, so I didn't even have to ask any questions. It was pretty cool. But anyways, I loved talking to her. I learned about so many little things that I try to get at in this podcast that I ask people about. Favorite foods, salt sores, how she avoided them, how she avoided issues with her hands. She took a very preventative way of looking at the rowing. She stretched in the morning. She tells us things that she wished she knew going in, which is part of why I created this. So I'm really excited. Without further ado, keep listening, and here's the episode, and I hope you enjoy.
It's great being back, and just that, obviously I had a very specific reason for why I did it, and that really has worked in bucket loads. So there's just this huge momentum at the minute with the charity and work we're doing, and it's just a bit exhausting, but a great exhausting, so it's sort of really made it all so worthwhile, which is brilliant, so yeah, it was I'm probably not a great person to speak to, Amanda, because I really hated it while I was actually in the middle of it. But the one thing I would say is, like, now it's done and finished, I look back on it being the most incredible experience, and I wish I'd actually sort of absorbed and appreciated it more, because I just, got in quite a negative place when I was out there, and I just wished it was all over, and I kind of regret that a little bit now, because actually, now it's finished, I do look back on it as being absolutely magical, so I know that's a bit of a pink and fluffy thing to say, but I wish someone had said to me beforehand, you'll feel shit but appreciate it, like just stop and take a moment to appreciate it, because I think being out there on your own is just so special, and that peace and quiet, and I say tranquility. Obviously the sea isn't always tranquil, but even when it's not, there's just something so amazing about being on your own, so yeah, even when it's shit, absorb it.
I think that makes you the perfect person to talk to, because if everybody said it was amazing, they're lying.
Yes, absolutely. And, again, I can remember I spoke to one person who'd done it the year before while I was actually out there. And he said, oh, Kelda, I know it feels like it's like you're out there forever at the minute, but honestly, once you get back, it'll feel like it's passed so quickly. And at the time I was going, bullshit, this feels like it is taking forever, because it is taking forever. But you know what? She was so right. And it is so short-lived, but it just doesn't feel like it when you're in the middle of it, And I thought it was never going to end some of the time. And I think everyone's experience is different, because I didn't get on great with the solitude. So, and I'm saying that it was super special. It was, and that was where it was kind of all a bit weird, because when I was out there, that was the bit that I hated, because I kind of realised very quickly that I wasn't cut out to be on my own, that I enjoyed being around people. But again, since I've come back, I kind of go, oh, I wish I could go back to that, because I spent so much time hating it that I forgot to absorb it, if that makes any kind of sense.
It makes complete sense. That's perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
I mean, I've actually I jotted down a few things, because I'm probably much more like that sort of advice, that's such a crap word, isn't it? But the stuff that no one tells you, that is the little things that I think actually can make a really big difference to your row. And for me, it was things like, and you will laugh at some of the stuff I tell you probably, Amanda.
This is great. Thank you for jotting things down. This is amazing.
I know. Well, it's just, they tell you the important stuff, but actually you're going to do the important stuff anyway. And there were so many little things that I just thought, I wish someone had told me this. And if I'm speaking to anyone who's going to do it, this is what I'm going to tell them, because this is the stuff that I think is more useful, And it was things like, take 2 sets of waterproofs, and they don't have to be expensive waterproofs, like just bog standard normal waterproofs, because the marine ones are so expensive, aren't they? And you don't need them, just decent bog standard waterproofs. But what I found was,
are you talking about the full body waterproofs?
Well, just a jacket and trousers,
okay.
So not together, separate.
Gotcha.
But what I found was, if I was rowing late at night and just before I was going to pack up to sleep, you get hit by a wave, and your waterproofs are soaked. There is nothing worse than having to put them in a dry bag, because you don't want to get your cabin all wet. You put them in a dry bag, and then in the morning you're putting on wet proofs. And when it's done, it's not chilly as in cold chilly, but before the sun comes up, especially if you're wet, it can just be a bit chilled. The wind can chill you a bit, so you do need your waterproofs on. And it was miserable when it was like 5 o'clock in the morning and dark and a little bit chilly, pulling on wet waterproofs. And I had 2 jackets, but I only had 1 set of trousers. Okay. But what I then started doing was that I'd then put on my dry waterproofs, and then when the sun came out, I'd hang the wet ones up to dry, and then as soon as they were dry, I'd pack them away. And then the next night, if my waterproofs got wet, you still had that dry set ready for you know what I mean? So you were constantly rotating them, and that just made things so much more pleasurable. So they're not heavy, they don't take up a lot of room, really easy to do. But oh my god, like that just made such a difference. Podcasts, and again, it'll be each to their own. Someone had downloaded some podcasts for me, but not that many. And I loved them. And audiobooks more than music, because they kind of absorbed my mind a little bit more, because I concentrated on listening to them. And especially like the podcasts, when they were interviewing people, it sort of made you feel like there was people, because it was like a chatty sort of conversation. And I loved it. I was like, oh, it's my podcast hour now, can't wait, And the same with the audiobooks. I got that I would put an audiobook on in the afternoon, and like 3-4 hours could pass so quickly because you were absorbed in the book. But again, I didn't have enough, so I went through them very quickly.
How many did you have?
I took probably had about 10.
Okay.
But what I found was some of them just really boring, and so unless it's a good one, there were some that would just send me to sleep. So that was the other thing. If they were boring, because you're a bit knackered and it's a bit monotonous anyway, they were dangerous because they would just send you to sleep. So there were some that I just stopped listening to because they weren't working. And I probably ended up with 4 or 5 that did absorb me. But then I ended up listening to them, like I say, about 30 times each. So I would just take as many as you can, because again, if you're rowing 15, 16 hours a day for however long it takes, that's a lot of books, you know?
Yep.
And so I would just say, like, you can never have too many of those, because then if there's any that you just find boring, you can scrap them, and, you know, you've got plenty to go at then of ones that you find interesting. I actually jotted these things down on a bit of paper, so it's going to get a bit wet now, but I'll bring it out so I don't forget some of the stuff. You know, everyone complains about getting a sore ass and getting salt sores on the backside. I didn't get any.
You're the third person to say that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, well, maybe they'll either tell you the same thing as me or maybe different stuff.
No, what did you do?
Well, I did a number of things. One, I would say, take a selection of cushions for your bum, because what I found was something would work brilliantly, but after 3 or 4 days, you would start to get a sore spot. But I had a number of different selections of cushions, so I would just change them. And every time I changed it, because it would sort of just be pressing a different place, it meant I never got a sore because I just kept on changing. What I ended up getting was waterproof, you know, like the outdoor cushions if you've got outdoor furniture.
Yeah.
Because everyone says about the salt, you know, and it absorbing the salt. But if you get waterproof ones, it doesn't absorb. The only thing is it does get a bit sweaty then if you want to row with nothing on. So I didn't very often row with nothing on, because then you were sort of irritating your skin because of the sweat on a waterproof sort of cushion type surface. Yeah. But I rowed in what really worked for me were the compression shorts and compression leggings that are like skin tight, because as soon as you've got anything that's remotely loose, even lycra shorts, if they're not that real sort of skin tight thing, they'll get a crease in them and they'll rub. So I actually found just the compression shorts and leggings that are quite thin, but they are that real sort of skin tight fit, worked brilliantly. And then for the cushions, so I had a waterproof outdoor cushions. I had what I did, and again, I can't believe people would tell you to do this, but it worked for me. I put a pillow in a dry bag, and people say, oh, the pillow will still get wet, It didn't very often. Sometimes it did if I was getting, like, you know, hit by a lot of waves, but then it didn't matter because it was in a dry bag anyway, so it didn't matter if the pillow got a bit wet. And I just found that brilliant for my backside. You know, it was so comfy. And again, you wouldn't want to be rowing on that naked because you'll get sweat, but if you've got shorts on, that worked great. So I had the waterproof cushions, I had the pillow, and I had some of those, sometimes I stacked things on top of each other to change the angle that my bum was at on the seat. Yeah. If that makes sense. So sometimes I put, you know, one of the waterproof cushions and then the pillow in the dry bag on top of it, just to keep changing my position. And again, it might feel bulky, but they're so light, you know, it doesn't really matter. And especially as a solo, you're not short on space. Yep. But I had 2 waterproof cushions, but actually what happened is because you're on them so much, they compress down. Yep. So I ended up putting both of them on top of each other. It was fine to start with, but still over time, they compressed down and it got a bit uncomfortable. And I was thinking, God, I wish I brought more, because then, you know, after a couple of weeks, you can maybe pull out a fresh one that hasn't compressed down. Yeah. So I really wouldn't scrimp on that, because you're sat on them for a bloody long time, you know. So if it keeps your ass comfortable, it's it's well worth it, you know, so worth it. So for me personally, I would really prioritize like plenty of different cushions and different combinations and different varieties and that kind of thing.
Awesome.
The other thing I did, which really helped, was I kept like a empty fairy liquid bottle on deck that I filled with just fresh water, and I would keep just squirting myself down. So if I got hit by a wave, I would almost instantly just stop and rinse myself off with the fresh water. And again, with your cushion, if you've got your waterproof cushion, you can really easy just squirt it with the fresh water, wash the salt water off, and then it stops it from causing salt sores. So, yeah, I mean, you know, some people might say that's a faff. I'd rather have that than getting salt sores and you're in pain for however long you're out there, you know. So that worked really well for me. Else have I written down?
You are the first one to mention that, so great job.
Really?
Thank you.
Oh, well, there you go. That's it. I mean, what I found as well, and because I spoke to a lot of people when I was about the same stage as you, and I actually found I was getting too much information. You know, I kind of like didn't know what to do with it all. And I stopped talking to people then, and I was like, right, I need to go and find out some of this myself.
Yeah.
And what I would say is just get in the boat and try stuff, you know, because what works for me might not work for you. But get in the boat, play around with it. It is totally different out there. So it's kind of find out what you can find out in your training and make your own judgments, but also no one knows you better than you, you know. So I knew that some things that people had told me just really didn't matter to me. You know, you might be thinking, oh, I really don't give a shit about audiobooks, you know, because that's you. It worked for me, but it might not work for you. So I kind of just went, right, I'm going to listen to everyone. I've taken it all on board, and now I'm going to go and find out what I think I need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, if you decide to ditch everything that everyone's told you, I think that's cool. You know, it's just what works for you.
Yeah.
The other thing, one thing I would say is make sure the gas fits your gimbal once so like where you fit your gas into to do your cooking. Okay. Because Atlantic Campaign supply you with the gas canisters, I got out there and the gas canisters are a different size than the ones I'd been using and didn't fit my gimbal. And we didn't realise until like the day before I was due to set off, and then I had this mad panic trying to find different gas canisters, couldn't find any, ended up like gaffer taping foam blocks into the gimbal to try and make them fit. And actually what happened was, you know, twice they tipped over on the boat and I nearly set fire to the boat.
Oh, you know? My gosh.
And that could have easily been prevented if I just checked them as soon as, you know, we were given them out there. So you've got time to go to the hardware store and get some new ones if they're the wrong size. So that's just learning from my mistakes.
Thank you. That will make it definitely on the list.
Yes. I found, so a lot of people said, oh, you know, just take lots of chocolate and sweets and stuff. I actually found I didn't want that out there. I wanted healthy stuff, and I wished I'd taken more cereal bars, dried fruit. I really missed fruit, but as in like when I had my porridge with, you know, berries in it, the freeze-dried stuff, or like my apple and custard freeze-dried stuff, I loved the fruity taste because the food becomes so bland out there. And I'd just taken a lot of kind of sweets and chocolate and stuff, and I didn't barely touch them because I wanted more healthy things like cereal bars and stuff. Now again, you might be different, but that was just what I found. It wasn't what I expected, but it was what I found, and I really wished I'd got more healthy stuff. The thing I did find was really good was sweets to suck on, like your boiled sweets. Or things like wine gums. I don't know if you get them out there.
What's it called?
But things that they call them like wine gums or midget gems, or almost like they're the sort of fruity, rubbery kind of sweets that you can suck or chew kind of thing. Okay. But what I found was those sorts of sweets, if I was having times on yours when I was just falling asleep again, it was really handy to just suck on a sweet to keep you awake. And so it wasn't about being hungry. Again, that we call them wine gums over here, but they're like fruity little, like jelly type sweets.
I looked them up.
You know? Yeah. And what I found was, like, because they're quite a fruity sort of taste, they really kind of zinged up your taste buds a bit, you know?
Yep.
So I found them really good. So yes, that was that. Have 2 decent flasks. And again, that was something no one told me, but I only ever boiled my water once a day because it's a pain in the bum to get everything out and do it. And so it was just too much faff. So I only ever got my jet boil and everything out once a day. But then I would boil, enough for 2 flasks and hydrate a meal at the same time. So I just did it all. If you get a decent one, I used to make it about 8 o'clock in the evening and it would still be warm at 8-9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh wow.
So you could boil your water up, you could hydrate your evening meal, you could have a flask for having a wash in the evening if you were having one, and you could have a flask ready for hydrating your breakfast the next day as well. So that was really, really useful, and really helped me, because it was too much faff to boil water more. I think when you're on your own, because you haven't got anyone else to do it while you keep rowing, it's just too long a time to stop, You just want to keep going.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I said. Oh, I don't know what, you probably haven't thought of this yet, but when it comes to what you're sleeping on, I took 2 camping mattresses, but when you put 2 on top of each other, because they're that sort of waterproof type material as well, great for that. But when your boat's been chucked around a bit, when you've got one on top of the other, they blooming slide all over the place.
Yep.
And you're sort of getting thrown around enough as it is without adding to it. So I ended up trying to like gaffer tape the 2 of them together just to stop them from sliding around. So I would say you're better off with one thicker one than taking 2, because they just slide around too much. So yeah, that was something that I found really useful. That's kind of all the sort of silly stuff, but that I've got written down. The only other thing, one other thing was oar covers and gloves. Now, I thought I'd be fine because I've got pretty tough hands anyway, because I've worked with horses all my life. But actually, just in the first 2 weeks, so I had like a neoprene sleeve that just slipped onto the end of the oar where you hold it. And then I had some neoprene, like fingerless gloves. Okay. And what I found was just a bit like with the cushions, swapping round. Just really helped. And I got a couple of blisters, but nothing that ever got sore. So just in the first 2 weeks, until my hands sort of calloused up and toughened up a bit, I just, I'd row for half a day with the oar sleeves on. I'd row for half a day with nothing on, and then in the evenings I might put the fingerless gloves on, kind of thing. So again, I just changed things round. And I never had any problem with my hands either. So that was really useful. I don't know, have you thought, again, you're probably not there yet, but when it comes to sat phones, like Atlantic campaigns say you have to have 2 sat phones. Okay. I had an Iridium Go as well. And with the Iridium Go, you can link your normal phone up to the Go, and you pretty much just use your phone as normal. And it was magic out there. Both of my sat phones went down.
Oh wow.
So actually, if I hadn't had the Go, I would have lost all comms. But also, you just sending text messages on the sat phone, getting emails is really tedious. Yeah. On the sat phones. on your phone, you just carry on as normal, so they're not the cheapest thing in the world. About 800 quid, something like that. So yeah, if you got the budget to do it, I would say getting a go. It's really worthwhile. And again, I don't know whether you thought about it. Have you thought about whether you're going to use a weather router or not?
Is that like the auto home?
No, so that's just where you've got someone aside from Atlantic Campaigns,
got it.
just kind of basically telling you where to go. And Atlantic Campaigns don't kind of encourage it, in that they say, you get enough information from us and you don't need it. I had an arrangement with a guy that I wasn't going to use a weather router, but that if I changed my mind while I was out there, could I give him a shout? Mm-hmm. And I gave him a shout on day 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I just found, and again, I mean, have you got a lot of sea experience?
Nope.
Oh, no, well, me neither. I had none at all. You don't need it, you really don't. I mean, it's kind of helpful, but you don't need it. I couldn't have been less, I sort of ride horses and climb mountains. I'd never been on the bloody sea before, I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Yeah, that's me.
And I think, yeah, well, I just found that I felt incredibly vulnerable. That I just wanted someone telling me, yeah, you're going in the right direction, Kelda, you're cool, keep going. And what Atlantic Campaigns tended to do was that, especially when you're at the beginning and the whole fleet is still out there, every sort of third day, they might touch base with you and kind of say, yeah, nothing coming in. Like, you might want to head south a bit, you might want to head north a bit, or, whatever was relevant. And I wanted something more than that, because I just felt too vulnerable. So, like, on the first night I was out there, I was thinking, I want someone to be ringing me up saying, you're all right, Kelda, you're going in the right direction, you're okay, and just knowing that there was someone kind of just keeping an eye, so that if I started to go off course, I knew that they were watching me, and they were going to be calling me up going, oi, Kel, like, watch where you're going, sort of thing. And yeah, I just, that, I had a bad night the first night, and I was just like, I just want to know that, I can just get that reassurance that I'm good. And so I'd rung Leven Brown and said, right, can you do it? And he was brilliant. So I would call him up at 5:45 every night, and he would tell me what was coming in for the next 4 hours. He would look, and I would kind of go, well, actually, I've been trying to go on this bearing, but the wind's been pushing me this way. And so he'd say, well, maybe point a bit more in this direction, and then the wind will take you that way. And he was just great.
Yeah. So it was a lot more guidance.
Yeah, and I, the fact that we had this sort of, I'd call him, and just literally took each 24-hour period at a time. And I got like, don't tell me anything beyond the next 24 hours, because we'll speak again. Do that, and then we'll speak again, And again, it worked amazing, and it's not cheap. Okay. I think it was a couple of grand to do it, but for me, it made the whole thing a lot more pleasurable. I wouldn't have enjoyed it with just Atlantic Campaigns, because I did feel quite vulnerable with them. And they're great, they're amazing. It's not that they didn't do their job, but just I needed a little bit more. And so, again, make your own decision, but it definitely worked well for me. This is much more pink and fluffy stuff than sort of the what I guess Atlantic Campaigns would consider important stuff.
This is all important. This is what I want.
Yeah, I mean, this is more about the just day-to-day, bog standard stuff. For me, again, I really struggled at the beginning, and it took me it took me 12 days until I kind of went, right, I've got a routine now. And the routine was absolutely crucial to me. And I would literally follow it. You know, I would have a time that I was waking up, and I would wake up and I would, you know, check my position, and then I would brush my teeth, and then I would get my music ready for the day, and I'd be on the oars for 5:30 every morning, and I'd row from 5:30 till 8:30. 8:30 I'd stop for breakfast, and I would, you know, take my meds, I'd plot my position, I'd do this and this in that half-hour break. Then I'd be back on the oars at 9, and I'd row from 9 till 1:30. At 1:30 I'd stop, and I'd make my water, I'd call up Atlantic campaigns, I'd eat my lunch, I'd do this and this in that half-hour break. I'd be back on the oars at 2, I'd row from 2 till 5:45. And at 5:45 I'd ring up Leven and then boil my water, and then I'd be back on the oars by 6:15. I'd row from 6:15 till 8:30. I'd stop, I'd have my tea, I'd send my update for the day, you know, I'd do this and this, and then I'd be back on the oars by 9. I'd row 9 till 11, and then at 11 I'd stop, and I would, you know, have a wash, and I would do my diary, and I'd do this, and by 11:30 I'd be lights out, kind of thing. And that routine just got me through each day.
So you slept from 11:30 to 5?
I would sleep. It wasn't messages come through and stuff. It was in that half hour that I'd look at them and respond to any messages. And then I would set my alarm for about 4:45, because I would do some stretches, and I would, you know, do this and this, and then so I was on the oars for 5:30. But yeah, again, I didn't stop through the day at all.
Yep.
That worked better for me. So it worked better to me, block of sleep, and then keep going through the day, rather than, you know, stopping and having sleep through the day.
Yep.
But again, that was what worked for me.
So that's why
I just found like
Susan told me I should talk to you, because that's how I think, but I didn't know that was possible. So I think you're the first person to do that.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. And for me, with a routine of, and now it's bedtime.
Yeah.
And now it's morning time, and it's time to get on with the day, kind of thing. And I had some nights where the weather was really shit, and you just weren't gaining anything by rowing, you know, into the, you know, sometimes I'd stop at 9:30, 10, because if you're not gaining anything, you may as well stop and get some extra kip. So some nights I'd have like 6 hours kip, you know, and I'd be shutting down at like, say, sort of 10, 10:30, and I'd still then get up at 4:45. So yeah, it's more than possible. And what you'll find is you'll naturally sort of wake up, and I would just sit up, glance at my chart plotter, and if you'd been blown massively off course, you know, you might go and tweak your rudder, or, you know, if the wind's changed direction and you need to go and put the sea anchor out, you go and put the sea anchor out. But sometimes, well, quite often, you just sit up, you'd look at the chart plotter, and you're kind of going, mint, I've just gained 5 miles while I've been sleeping, you know, and then I'd just lie back down again. So yeah, that worked so much better for me. And I think, you know, God, I didn't do it quickly, but obviously I've got the issue with my leg, which didn't help things. So, you know, the leg affected my steering because I couldn't have foot steering. Yeah. So I rode further than any other boat in the fleet. Mm-hmm. And I only say that, like, I was out there longest, and I knew I was never going to be quick. Yeah. But it wasn't just that I was slow. You know, my mileage was good, my speed was good, and I looked after myself. Yep. Very well. I only lost 3 kilograms on the row, and I certainly wasn't overeating. I was very sensible with my eating, in that, you know, I would have porridge or granola for breakfast. I would have a protein bar mid-morning. I would have a military ration or some more granola for lunch, a packet of nuts in the afternoon. that evening, and I didn't have anything other than maybe a handful of sweets here and there when I was falling asleep. So I didn't overeat, but I maintained that the whole way through, in that I would make myself stop and have those meals, even if I wasn't hungry or didn't really feel like it. I would still make myself eat them, and I lost very little weight, and actually the beauty with that is I was rowing as hard at the beginning, so I didn't get any injuries, I didn't get any sores. I stretched every morning, every night. So every morning before I started, every night before I finished, I would, when I finished, not before I finished, that would be difficult. I would have a stretch, and just really made sure I managed myself very well. And, you unless you're going out there to set a world record, I don't know whether you are or not. If you are, it's slightly different. If you're not, you can afford to just do a bit more what you need to keep yourself in good nick,
I totally agree. I'm on the same page as you. And you saying the going through different things that you're sitting on, different things for your hands. So I'm a physical therapist. So I already think in that kind of way of preventative, let's prevent things from happening. So all of this is awesome.
Yeah. And my personal hygiene, I was so regimental with my personal hygiene. So I would wash every night, but one night I would do it with water wipes. And I just have a full body wash with water wipes, and then one night I would just, when I boiled my water, I'd have one flask for washing, and I had a little, the fold down trays that they collapse flat, and then you can pull them up into a little tray, and I just put like an inch and a half of water in there, and I would put baby like the liquid baby soap in it, and I had a sponge, and I would just have a sponge wash. So every other night I'd have a sponge wash, every other night I'd have a water wipes wash. I'd moisturise then after I'd washed. I shave my legs every other night. But the reason why I didn't to start with, but when you're rowing, you're looking down at your legs the whole time, and when you're starting to look a bit like a chimpanzee, you feel so disgusting that I was like, oh, stuff it, I'm shaving. But then because they got quite long, it was really difficult to sort of trim them up again. So I was like, right, every other night when I had my sponge wash, I'd use some of the water, when I'd finished washing, the water at the bottom of the tray, and I'd just quickly do my legs, and it just kept me feeling better. And then I took dentist sticks, the dental flossing stuff for my teeth. I took a mouthwash, and I'd every morning I had facial wipes for my face. So every morning I would just use the facial wipes and I would moisturise. Sounds really girly. I'm the least girly person you could possibly meet. But what it did was it looked after myself, Nail clippers, take nail clippers, because whether you get splits that are quite low or just your nails start getting long, they can get really uncomfortable. So nail clippers were invaluable. Yeah, I mean, people told me to take perfume and nail varnish and stuff.
What?
They said, oh, when you want to have a little bit of a treat, to make yourself feel good. Well, I tell you, there was barely a day that the boat stayed still long enough to put nail varnish on, you know what I mean? So that didn't work for me.
I don't even own perfume, so that wouldn't be me.
Yeah, exactly. So but I did take some all over body spray.
Okay.
And it was just, Christmas Day, I'd use my all over body spray just as a little treat. And sometimes it's just nice. That's another thing I would say as well, actually. Take more things like t-shirts and pants than they say. So I slept in a t-shirt and a pair of pants, but you get so sweaty in the cabin. You wake up and they'll be wringing in sweat, and then you're putting them in a dry bag and then just putting them back on the next night. And I mean, again, I was out there 3 months, and I'd taken 2 or 3 T-shirts. Well, oh my God, they were like walking off the boat themselves, by the end of it. And I would just rinse them through. So I just rinse them through in fresh water, and to start with, that was all right. But at the end, they were just disgusting. And I wished I'd had just more, just T-shirts, especially the wicking T-shirts are really good because they dry so quickly. Yeah. So just wicking T-shirts and pants, I would have taken more of. I wore, because I just didn't feel comfortable rowing naked. I wanted to feel like an athlete. Yep. Out there, because I knew that was what would enable me to perform at my best. Yep. And an athlete doesn't perform naked. And so I always wore a sports bra. But what I did, the sort of softer, more stretchy ones, so I would then sometimes just like pull the straps down, so that's only for your suntan, but it works. And again, that's just a personal thing for me, but that was what I found. So I don't know if there's anything else. Here's me, I've just waffled on for like an hour, but I don't know if there's anything that you want to ask, Amanda.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. My biggest question for you was the rowing schedules. I heard that yours was unique, and you went into that, so that was perfect.
Okay, brilliant. And again, the thing is, you can change it. Yeah. And it is the beauty as a solo. So I did change it a little bit, because daylight, you get basically 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of darkness. Mm-hmm. And this is something that no one told me, but it changed. So I kept my boat on UK time the whole way across, so that I knew when I was calling people up, I knew I was ringing them at, respectable times and things. But as you go across, it starts off that it's getting light about 7:30 and getting dark about 7:30. By the end, it's getting light about 10:30 in the morning and getting dark by 10:30 at night. So I found that I sort of adjusted things a little bit as I went across. And, when I was getting more daylight in the evenings, I was maximising that. So I was starting a little bit later in the morning and rowing a bit later. Mm-hmm. At night. And sometimes I just go, actually now I really want to do like a big shift before breakfast. So I would row like 5:30 till 8:30 and then stop for breakfast. Initially I was doing 5:30 till 7:30, but then as it started staying dark for longer, mm-hmm. when you were getting back on the oars at 8 and you still had like another couple of hours of pitch dark, mm-hmm. I just found that soul destroying. So I found it easier to do a bigger shift before breakfast. Yeah. And then after I'd had my breakfast, I'd only have like an hour to do until it started to come light. Mm-hmm. But again, as a solo, just play with it, try something, and if you want to change it, just change it. And that is the absolute beauty of being a solo, that you don't have to worry about what anyone else is doing. So I almost wouldn't stress too much about it. I'd have a provisional plan and then just see how it works and change it if you don't like it, kind of thing.
So did you have an auto helm at all?
No.
Okay. So when you were sleeping your long hours, you just went where it took you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I would just lock my rudder off, normally central. But then if I knew the wind was going to be coming and pushing me south, I might just angle the rudder a little bit to try and minimise a bit of the drift. Mm-hmm. So that, again, where the beauty of your weather router is invaluable. Yeah. And, it probably did add a few days to my crossing. But for me, it was one less thing to worry about. As far as I know, a lot of people had problems with their auto helms. Yeah. It's a big drain on your power. I never ran short of power, not for a single day. But if you were going for a world record, you'd probably want to have an auto helm. But, I didn't have one, and I didn't miss the auto helm. I wish I'd had foot steering, but that is a mandatory thing with Atlantic campaigns anyway. I just couldn't have it because of my leg. Yeah. And that was the thing, because of the seas we had, quite often you wanted to just knock the rudder for a couple of strokes and then knock it back, which I couldn't do when I was having to stow the oars and move the cleats and blah, blah, blah. So that, again, I just had to go with the wind a little bit more, hence why I ended up doing so many miles. Are you planning on having an auto helm or not?
As of right now, I believe I will have one, but unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think, most people did. I think there was there weren't many of us without one. I'm just going to plant this little seed with you, but I listened to a podcast while I was out there, a guy whose name I've forgotten. He was the first guy to row the Pacific solo.
Okay.
And really interesting because he was talking about your auto helm, and he kind of went, well, I see it that auto helm's actually kind of cheating because it takes about 20% of your energy to sort of deal with steering. So if that's been done by a machine, and I was like, yes, and I think the thing is, Atlantic campaigns don't make any differentiation between who has auto helm and who doesn't. So sometimes it can feel quite unfair because it's like, well, I'm doing this without auto helm, and yet I'm competing against people who are, and general public following this are thinking that I'm going slowly, but actually I've got no auto helm here. So, I agree with what this guy said, but nobody else gives a shit, really. So in some respects, you've got nothing to lose by having one because it will shorten your journey or the time you're out there, but it does just mean that there is the ongoing thing of problems with it and power.
Gotcha.
And I was just a bit au naturel with my boat because I didn't have auto helm, I didn't have foot steering, and I didn't have a dagger board. So we were just literally the boat and 2 oars, and that was it. And I kind of quite like that.
Did you build your boat?
No, I was actually lucky enough someone lent her to me, which was amazing.
Okay.
But she'd done it twice before, so but she was a very traditional boat. She was a Jamie Fabrizio boat. She was a pure, so she was a very, very traditional ocean rowing boat. Do you know, have you got yours yet? Or
I'm probably gonna build mine.
Oh, cool. Nice. Do you know, have you spoken to or been linked up with Michelle Lee?
No, she's on my list to talk to.
Okay, brilliant. Because she built hers, and she did an amazing job with hers because her boat was a pure still, but it was incredibly light and big. Like hers was so bloody dog again. Hers was so much bigger than mine. And although I thought that was a disadvantage, because obviously, you've got more boat to row across, it was so light that it didn't make a lot of difference. But she had so much more space. Like I had no space on the boat at all. Like I sort of took one step onto the rowing seat and that was it, whereas hers, she had room to do a blooming full yoga session out on deck, so she'd be well worth speaking to about her boat and what she did. So yeah.
Thank you. I definitely will.
Brilliant. Well, I hope that hasn't sort of blown your mind more than it's helped it.
This was amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and fitting me into your busy schedule. It's amazing.
No
and
problem at all.
Congratulations. Like, that's a great achievement that you did, honestly.
Thank you. And just, do you know what? It is, God, I sort of know so nuts right now, and I know how overwhelming it can feel. The one thing I think, if I said anything about like the preparation side of things, is just, it will happen. It sort of naturally evolve, and where it can feel totally overwhelming because there's so much to do, but there will always be something that has got like a deadline to it that has to take priority. And I just found things just naturally evolve, and you naturally work your way through the list. And I wasted a lot of energy worrying about getting it all done. But as long as you've got lots of lists and you just prioritize, it happens. It does just happen. So yeah, I think it's probably easy to say now it's done, but it will just keep ticking away and keep ticking things off the list, and then you'll add another 10 things onto the list. But it evolve and naturally happen, and you'll just learn stuff yourself as you go along, so enjoy it. It is amazing. It doesn't always feel like it, but I promise you, when it's done and finished, you'll be so bloody glad that you did it, and it is definitely worth all the hard work.
Thank you. I really appreciate this. Are you okay if I turn some of this into a podcast?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Okay. Yeah, no problem at all. And if you want to chat again, then please feel free. Just give me a shout, and I'll normally have to tie it in with walking the dogs as well. But that's no problem.
Thank you. I really appreciate you making the time for this and to chat with me.
No problem at all. And good luck. Enjoy it, and shout if you need anything.
Will do. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know.
Bless you. That's awesome. You take care.
You too. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Ocean Run podcast. If you liked it, please hit subscribe. Please leave me a review. Let me know you liked it. Feel free to email me if you have any suggestions on who you want to see on the podcast, or if you have any questions that you want answered if you're a future ocean rower, or just in general if you have questions. It's mail@oceanrowingpodcast.com. That'll go directly to me, and I will be sure to answer those questions. So next episode will be one of those nice and short and sweet ones where I give you an update, and since I'm so far out, I know I don't have huge updates, so maybe it's these longer episodes you like, but just wanted to put that out there. Listen in about 2 weeks, and my short episode will be coming out, and then after that we've got Megan Hoskin and an amazing interview episode with her for that one. So stay tuned and hit subscribe if you liked it.